Mr. McGee, don't make me angry. You wouldn't like me when I'm angry.
You are about to listen to the Totally Super Awesome 80s Reboot Overdrive podcast.
This podcast is our fan tribute to the Incredible Hulk TV show. Be advised it has been exposed to radiation and we caution to listen at your own risk. You have now entered GammaCast.
Hello and welcome to the GammaCast. I'm your host, Charlie the Professor Esser, and with me, as always, is the lovely, the fantastic, the amazing, the incomparable
80s music girl.
Oh, I love her so much. She is so great. Every time you're here, 80s music girl, the skies part, the darkness leaves, and the world is made a better place. Okay.
Holy crap, thanks.
Yes.
I need to put that in a bottle.
Tonight's episode, East Winds. First air date, February 20th, 1981. Season 4, Episode 11. Chinese gangsters are after a gold treasure hidden in David Barrett's rented Chinatown apartment. An old cop has fallen in love with a girl forced to work for the gangsters. Tonight's episode directed by Jack Colvin, which is okay because Jack Colvin's not even in it.
Yeah, I think that's kind of their way of saying, if you're not going to be in the episodes, at least you earn your keep and direct or something.
Well, I think maybe that's sort of the deal, is they kept him on and they let him direct, and that's sort of the...
There you go. Keeps him out of trouble.
Yeah, well, writer, of course, Kenneth Johnson, and Jill Donner. Jill Donner is a regular writer for the Hulk. She had previously written... this is actually her last one. But prior to this, she did On the Line, The Psychic, Proof Positive, Broken Image, The Quiet Room, Kindred Spirits, Haunted, Stop the Presses, Alice in Discoland, Rainbows End, and The Beast Within.
Wow.
She was also a writer on Voyagers, one of my favorite time travel shows. She did a couple episodes of Magnum P.I. as a writer. And, and then when they did the 80s cartoon, that's right. This is her as the executive story consultant. So she actually, all throughout the 80s, was an executive story consultant on all the Hulks. So, yeah, you see her all the way to Death Mask. She did some Freddy's Nightmares. She got a producer credit on 28 episodes too, so she was doing well. She even went on to be a producer on Baywatch. So there you go.
Sweet.
Yeah, this girl was all over
Bit of
the
a
place.
stretch, but there you go.
Well, big muscly guys. That's what she.
Yeah.
That's her sweet spot as a writer. Okay. In tonight's episode, we have actress Irene Ya-Ling Sun, who previously was in Another Path, which was our Kung Fu episode a while ago, where basically, this was it was the first time where we actually had like a character come back. Though she didn't come back in that. She was just in Another Path, which was the first one. And then later, in The Apprentice, you had a different young Asian girl being in it. And it's kind of weird to me that it was Another Path, because this one definitely takes place in San Francisco, because we do see they do cut to an exterior with the Golden Gate Bridge. So this is supposed to be the San Francisco Chinatown. I thought the other one took place in San Francisco's Chinatown, but we get no mention of that. So that might have been just another West Coast Chinatown somewhere. I don't know.
There you go.
I don't know how common Chinatowns are on the West Coast. There may be ones in like L.A. and other places.
Yeah, I'm thinking there's definitely one in
Yeah.
L.A.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. But we open up, and this has Richard Liu as sort of our Chinese mob boss, who is
Mm-hmm.
really actually a great villain in this. I really liked
Mm-hmm.
him throughout it.
Mm-hmm.
He does a great job, and he had what I thought was just one of my favorite lines. I mean, just has line after line that is just golden.
Mm-hmm.
Where he's talking to his henchman, who
Mm-hmm.
had the guy die before he could interrogate him to find out where the gold
Yes.
got hidden. And he
Mm-hmm.
says, "Do not worry, your incompetence works in your favor. If you were a
Yeah.
more competent assassin, I might be afraid to keep you around."
Yeah. Yeah.
And
That was good.
that was just beautiful. That was just beautiful.
Yeah.
Um.
Did you get the sense that maybe those two are related?
Oh, you mean like the gangster and
William and Mr. Chang.
Yeah. Cam Chong is his character.
Chong, sorry.
William Shimoda. I mean, it's entirely possible. I mean, I'm sure like any mob family, there is some familial ties there.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. I mean, there was definitely a relationship that was probably a little deeper than simply employer and employee. Exactly
Yes.
how much it was, I don't know, but
Right.
it was definitely not a healthy relationship.
No.
Because he very
No, it
much
wasn't.
tears the guy down constantly.
Oh, yes.
Although I guess to his in Kam Chung's defense, William is a bit of an incompetent.
Just a smidge. Yeah.
Yes.
Probably spends a little bit more time on his hair than he
Mhm.
should in his
Yeah.
thug handbook.
Yeah. Well, it's the 80s.
Thuggery 101.
You know what this is clearly William is American born.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Cam is from the old country because he still has a bit of an accent,
Yes.
And so there is this. I'm sure there was this antagonism there of the next generation not
Mhm.
have, and you get the same thing when you deal with any kind of stereotypical Italian or even Irish mobsters in stories where you'll
Mhm.
have like the ones that are too American, the old
Mhm.
the mustache Pete's as they would call them in the old days. Didn't really trust the young kids because
Yeah.
they weren't from the old country. They didn't have the traditions that the old country had.
Exactly.
You know, we get an interesting thing here with Sergeant Keeler,
Mhm.
played by William Wyndham,
Yeah.
which is that he is real soft on illegals.
Yeah.
Which is one of these. Every so often, I'm watching these episodes and think, man, was this like written last week? This is like, but it just goes to show you that things that people get wound up about in our modern era, they've been getting wound up
Mhm.
about pretty much for the last 30 years. That these are
Yeah.
not new things.
No.
But he's a guy. He has a soft heart for refugees. And again, refugees. He doesn't believe refugees are bad people. He thinks that these are just people trying to make their way in the world. And I don't care if they're illegals. I only care if they're criminals. And that's pretty cool in its own way. Although we also see that maybe he's not the coolest guy because he does have a very creepy relationship with Tam.
Yeah. Yes, he did.
Yes, we do see that David has a old Chinese landlady who wants to fix him up, because
Pretty much everybody that's single, women anyway.
well, and because David's a catch, we all know this. We would,
Yeah.
that's how David makes his livings. Is he is a handsome young man, new in town, with an
Mhm.
easy smile, and
Mhm.
the ladies like that.
Yeah.
And he gets delivered a mail order bride, which is again one of these
So,
things, we had made mention last episode about like people whose jobs included a place to live in the back of the shop. Um,
yes.
and is that really a thing? And here we have the mail order brides. Now I know mail order brides are a thing, obviously, and we still to this day have dating sites to fix you up with a woman from some other country.
Mhm.
Essentially arranging,
Yeah.
you bring them to this country and give them what you can do what you do, and you guys will establish some sort of relationship. I don't judge
Right.
people's relationships. I don't know
Yeah.
how you met that person. I'm not going to say it's inherently right or wrong. Consenting
Right.
adults, it's all good by me. Um,
Absolutely.
but David did not order a mail order bride, so he is
No,
a little taken aback. Um,
yes. His mouth
um,
was quite agape.
yeah,
Must admit.
but what it was very interesting. I'm watching this and of course, I'm seeing this scene and I'm not sure what's going on. But you see her looking around. You see her keep on looking at the chemicals. And
Mhm.
because I did not realize that she was going to be a plant for the bad guys.
Right. Mhm.
And I was thinking there was actually going to be a thing here where it's like, oh no, she's got a doctorate in chemistry from Shanghai University, but
Yeah.
she's got into the mail order bride business because got to get out of freaking Shanghai.
Exactly.
So I thought there might have been a very cool story where they bonded over that. But of course, that's not the story because this is again someone other than the Hulk story. This is
Mhm.
Jack Keeler's story
Mhm.
because apparently he's sweet on Tam, and
Yes.
I don't know, that was real creepy to me.
Um. I. It doesn't surprise me, honestly. I didn't really find it unusual, only
Hmm.
because it's a thing then, it's a thing now.
Hmm.
You found a lot of like military men that went over, to Vietnam and Korea and things like that, and a lot of them would be older and they'd bring back these young wives, and they
Yeah.
all had their ulterior motives for what they were, you know.
Well, yeah.
It was just one of those things.
Yeah.
It made for a very interesting story in this episode,
Hmm.
but it doesn't, maybe she's a little older than we think she is.
Yeah.
She has
Well,
to be at least in her 30s.
yeah. Well, I mean, I guess and it's not so much the May December aspect of it as
Right.
it did seem. First off, he seemed to. I don't know. The dynamic between them seemed very much a. Well, first off, and I think that was one of the central points is that it was often a very transactional relationship.
Right.
That's what eventually broke them up because he realized
Hmm.
that she was with him because she thought he could help her get her sisters into this country.
Right.
So it was very interesting. Although again, that was a plot thread that I don't think they've really well resolved in this,
Yeah.
because we get that she gets one sister back, but that her other sisters are still in the custody of the mafia guy when he gets
Hmm.
arrested. So,
Right.
but let's step back a bit. Uh, After David's dinner catches on fire, Tam runs away
Hmm.
because, you know, uh, because of course Jack Keeler recognizes her and is trying to,
Hmm.
arrest her, and
Right.
he takes David to the mob boss's restaurant, which
Hmm.
again, this is one of these things where why did he take them there? It's a very
Yeah.
odd choice because surely he knows this is the mob boss's restaurant. He knows who the
Right.
mob boss is. Now he
Right.
doesn't know that the mob boss thinks that that David has the gold and wants to keep it. He just
Mhm.
so maybe he's just thinking that this is completely unrelated to the mob boss and it's a nice restaurant to go to. and he has some sort of a relationship, as you know, as a cop might have with the local criminal hierarchy,
Mm-hmm.
as part of
Yeah.
the organized aspect of organized crime,
Right.
But they give him on the house, fish with black bean sauce, which
Mm-hmm.
he does not eat because he's just there to drink. And he gives it
Mm-hmm.
to David, and then we find out that puffer fish has been mixed in with
Yeah.
the yellowtail.
That's
Um,
serious.
yes. Although maybe I just have a dirty mind, but when Keeler tells David, "Hey, who knows? You might find you like yellowtail." I did think that was supposed to be a double entendre. Um,
Yeah, actually, I thought it possibly was a reference more to David's moral character. I think,
yeah.
like maybe he was calling him a coward or something. Or
Okay. See,
yeah,
I'm thinking
but
tail,
see,
and
there you
yeah,
go.
I
But
was
now
thinking.
that you say it like that, then it's like, oh
Yeah,
yeah.
I got a dirty mind. I admit it.
Okay.
Anyway, so David eats all of the fish, and
Yes.
then we find
Well, he
out that
saves a little bit though.
saves a little bit. Yeah.
Saves a little bit. Yeah.
Well, because after a while you start to the effects of the puffer start hitting. And again, this was a great another great point there for Cam Chung, saying, imagine that being able to kill after you're dead. I don't envy many men, but I do envy the puffer fish. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. It
and
was pretty simple.
David starts to have his, he gets paralyzed, he's dying. And it's
Hmm.
an interesting thing that's what triggers the Hulk here.
Yeah.
Because, and what was weird about it is that we don't, I mean, obviously it makes sense that it would, because that's going to be
Hmm.
very panic inducing. But of course,
Yes.
we don't see anything, that is panicky as this happens, and
Right.
it's interesting. But because he's paralyzed, normally when he does when the eyes turn, it is very much
Hmm.
you get the animalistic look in David's face, but he can't
Yeah.
do that here because he's paralyzed. So,
Yeah.
but the Hulk
I did.
shakes.
It was very interesting.
Yes,
Definitely. Very interesting Hulk out.
yes, the Hulk shakes off the paralytic,
Hmm.
which saves Sergeant Jack Keeler because they're about to shove the puffer fish down his throat.
Hmm.
The Hulk comes in, throws the gangsters, and runs off.
Hmm.
And then, of course, Sergeant Keeler's trying to file his report, and they're basically saying, well, our report says you came in here, you drank a bottle of rice wine by yourself, and then
Hmm.
started yelling about green men. So, yeah, it doesn't work out well. Um, we do see that Tam is, she when we had seen this just before this, she is working um, with Cam Chong.
Hmm.
She says, when she was in David's apartment, she saw he had chemicals and testing equipment. So they
Hmm.
assume that he must have found the golden bathtub and that he is
Hmm.
testing it to determine its purity.
Right.
You know,
Been a bit of alchemy.
yeah. Well, I guess, you know what? It makes a lot more sense than to say, well, maybe he's trying to find a cure for Hulkism.
Yeah.
I mean, really, I mean, it sounds weird until you think, well, what else would he be doing there? I mean, honestly, nowadays someone would say, well, maybe he's just cooking meth. But that wasn't the thing at the time. They weren't cooking meth in episodes of The Incredible Hulk at that time. Um, so, the gangsters see that David is back. He's back at his apartment, and they say, wait, wasn't he supposed to be dead from that puffer fish? How did he shake it off? And they figure that it all has to, that they're all in on it, that and this is one of these things where, you get the feeling that the mobsters think that, like, Keeler and David are, like, just 6 steps ahead of everyone on this.
Hmm.
And they really are just kind of wandering through this, literally
Oh,
unaware of
yeah.
what the plot line is.
Yes.
And they send a message to Sergeant Keeler to meet Tam. They give Tam the hidden knife in her hair thing so that she can kill the sergeant. And that's when we do get a nice interaction between the sergeant and Tam. Well, not a nice interaction, pretty awful interaction, where
Yeah.
basically, he hits her.
Yeah, I was thinking because she was talking to him first, and I'm like, he said something really mean, and I was like, slap him, slap him.
Yeah.
And you know how you shouted stuff, thinking that the characters can hear you.
Yeah.
And it ended up, role reversal. And I was like, oh, how dare you?
Yeah, well,
And she was like,
yeah.
oh my God, I could stab you now, but yet she doesn't.
No, she
he's like, oh,
doesn't, because she's not a murderer at the end of the
no,
day.
and
And
she
that's the
didn't know.
thing. Yeah, she's not a murderer, and that's that's always something. Everyone always thinks in the that's actually I made a movie not too long ago, still being edited together, but its central premise is this idea that even someone who deserves to be murdered, it's hard if you're not a sociopath, it's hard to actually murder someone.
Yeah.
It's hard to reach out in cold blood and murder someone because they're a human being and you're a human being too.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where we get the revelation that yes, there's $1 million in gold hidden in David's apartment. At this point we know that it's the bathtub,
Yeah.
which is just. I mean, I guess it's an interesting way to sneak it into the country to have the bathtub, melt down the gold, put it into, make it look like a cast iron bathtub, cover it in the ceramic, and then ship it into the U.S. So at this point we know that the bathtub is the gold we see. But of course, when they're trying to get David to admit to what he's doing. And again, this is one of these things where you're like, why is this even important to the bad guys?
Yeah.
Why is it important to them that it's like, okay, look, we're taking the bathtub, because they know
That's all they have to say. We're coming in, we're taking the bathtub, we'll put a shower in next week. See you later.
Yeah, well, really, because it's not like David
Because David doesn't care.
Yes,
Because,
but
all these people that get involved and, they drag him into their, espionage, and he just doesn't give a rat's.
yeah, yes. But they do, and it was a very interesting method of interrogation, because, of course, scalding water is actually pretty bad, and that fresh from the boiler water, that can be really, really hot. So yeah, you could actually really severely hurt someone doing that, and that's what they do. And they beat David up, they throw him in the bathtub, but they turn on the hot water full blast so that it's that steaming hot water.
Yeah.
And then they sort of leave him there because I don't think they understand the point of interrogation, that you have to actually ask him the questions and then stop what you're doing in the torture so that he can answer.
Yeah.
But it's like, well, just let him be tortured for a little while, and we'll ask him the questions again when he's done.
Yeah, if he even makes it, I mean, they don't know who he is. It could just been some regular guy, like the last guy that they killed.
Yeah, well,
We sort of got any information out of him.
As Cam Chung says, if he was a more adept assassin, he would be worried.
Yes. Yes,
but
he would.
with you here, I feel very safe.
Very safe.
Yeah, so he is torturing David. David, of course. This leads to David's Hulk out, which has him smashing up the bathroom, throwing the bathtub
which
across
really should have killed anybody if it was cast iron.
well, I mean, even if it was gold, it would have. If that hit
Well,
somebody,
yeah, I mean, that the weight of it itself, could have just easily cut,
the
guy in half. But
it was
didn't.
pretty heavy duty thing, and But because of that, the cops show up
Yep.
and they arrest Kam Chong
Hmm.
because, well, I mean, I guess for reasons.
Well,
You
I
know,
think probably Tam ratted him out.
yeah, yeah. It's one of these things where like you're wondering when the crime, what exactly the crime they're being charged with is. Well, I guess illegal importation of gold. I guess that's what it all comes down to.
Sure, why not?
Why not? And then this is one of these times where David is more than willing to hang out after his hulking out,
Hmm.
just to wrap up the story, because he
Yeah.
goes and he meets with the sergeant and they discuss. They give us our wrap up, and for what it's worth, I mean, I guess they don't suggest that the sergeant and Tam actually hook up after this.
Yeah.
They actually kind of make it clear that yeah, the sergeant was pulled in by a pretty face, and the pretty face was maybe being manipulative to him, but that they're kind of
Hmm.
stepping away and are a little cooler now. So that's
Yeah.
good. And then David says, "Yep, I got to go catch the bus." You
Yeah.
know, as he said, I think he said he was going south.
Yes.
Is his next adventure. Interestingly enough, the actual next adventure is, if I'm recalling correctly, is the first, which we'll be discussing in a couple weeks. The first part one, which
Hmm.
has David travels to Visceria, where another Hulk was sighted years before. He finds the lab where the creature originated. A man claims to have been the first Hulk, and most importantly, a cure. Bum bum bum. So that's next week.
Yeah.
That's where he's off to now. As it is this week, we are ending our Chinatown adventure. And
Yeah.
any final thoughts there, 80s Music Girl, on what we saw and what we learned?
Yes, actually, I've got several.
Okay, let's
First,
hear
I
'em.
want to give a huge shout out to the late William Wyndham. I
Mhm.
love him in anything that he was ever in. And he always brings a whimsical, aura to whatever character that he is playing. And I just really enjoyed watching him in the many TV shows that he was in. So
Yeah.
I wanted to say that first and foremost.
Yeah, well, yeah, and he
Um,
did have. I mean, the guy has tons of credits. He was a regular character on Murder She Wrote as
mhm,
Dr. Seth Hazlitt.
mhm,
He was working all the way up until 2006. He was Commodore Decker on Star Trek: The New Voyages Phase 2. I don't even know
mhm.
what that is, but okay. He was in an episode of JAG as a former chief of naval operations.
Yeah.
Um, uh, and of course, prior to that, he's all over the 80s. He's in Hardcastle McCormick. He's in Knight Rider. He's in
Mhm.
Magnum PI. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
he is definitely an actor who has been around. Lots of love boats here. Um,
Oh yeah.
um,
Oh my goodness.
yes.
My first thought, and I have to say this because I'm a huge kung fu fan.
Hmm.
I go all the way back to the days when, Bruce Lee and the Saturday afternoon kung fu theaters
Hmm.
and stuff like that. And, the minute I see, the East Winds and it's in Chinatown, it's in San Francisco, I'm like, oh, it's going to be kung fu. I just know it. And there wasn't. So a little disappointed there.
Yes. No, well, they already had done 2 kung fu episodes. Um, so, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Another Path, which is the first one, and then The Apprentice.
Well, I'll have to go back and watch those.
You should. I highly recommend them. They're actually very good. The Apprentice is oh, what's his name? Rick Springfield. Um,
Wow.
that was supposed to be his backdoor pilot as sort of this Iron Fist character. Right now they have the Iron Fist
Yes.
on Netflix.
Yeah.
Maz and I actually tomorrow night we're going to finish the final episode talking
Oh,
about it. But when we saw Actually, I think it was with Phil at the time. But when The Apprentice came out, it was supposed to be this backdoor pilot of sort of this kung fu detective, who was
Right.
friends with David, and he had super kung fu powers, and we just said they just called us Iron Fist. Interestingly enough, speaking of kung fu, our Richard Liu, our mobster, actually
hmm
played 3 different roles on kung fu. Actually,
Well, there you go.
yeah, he was Master Sun, Ho Fai the Weapons Master, and Wu Chang.
Chang.
He was in 6
See,
different
that's where I got the
episodes.
Chang from. See, I just
Yeah,
automatically called
there
him
we
Mr.
go. Oh, he was also a guy named Chen. So we have he was
Chang.
Master Sun in The Pilot, as well as Blood Brother.
Mm.
In The Tong, he was Chen. In Arrogant Dragon, he was Wu Chang. And yes, and he was Ho Fai, the Weapons Master, in The Devil's Champion. And then he comes back as Master Sun once again in Besieged Cannon at the Gate. Okay.
Nice.
Yes. So yeah.
So my last question and comment on the show
Mm-hmm.
is mainly it's a technical one as far as the Hulk is concerned. So do you remember when William threw the knife at him
Mm-hmm.
and cut the Hulk?
Yes.
Why didn't it heal after he returned to David?
Well, it did.
Well, no, it didn't.
Well, no. Okay, this is established. It heals very rapidly, but
Okay.
but he still
But-
has a scar the next day, and it
Right,
eventually
he was
the
still-
scar goes away.
Cleaning it. But when he got back directly,
Mm-hmm.
he had a big clear bottle of, I'm hoping it was hydrogen peroxide, not alcohol, that he was clearing to cut off with.
Yeah, well, whatever it was, he was. Yeah, I mean, well, he still has to clean it up, but it's actually mostly healed by that point. And you
Okay.
imagine that the cut was supposed to be very deep because we see this guy
Okay.
as a knife thrower,
I
and
wanted to. Yeah.
when he threw the other knife, it like sticks in like a 2-inch or not a 6-inch thick chopping table.
Yes.
So clearly the guy
Okay.
was good with a knife, and that's a Ginsu knife, man. That's
Yeah. It cut through cans.
can cut through
Well,
a
as a
Hulk like this.
Yeah.
And yeah, so but I mean they've done that a couple times where they have shown that he gets a wound and the wound remains, but you're supposed to note that it's supposed to be, wow, look how much faster it healed. That if that had just been like if it had just been a normal cut, like if David Banner had gotten that
Right.
cut, he'd need to get stitches
Right.
and go to the hospital and probably
Right.
bleed to death. And you did see there's all the Hulk blood there after he gets cut. So
This is true.
yes.
Okay.
Anything else you want to mention?
Nope, that was it.
Okay. Well then, 80s Music Girl. If people have been enjoying listening to you talk about the Hulk and would like to talk to you about the Hulk or 80s music or being a girl, how can they reach you?
I am at 80s Music Girl on Twitter and 80s Music Girl on Facebook and 80s Music Girl on Instagram.
Very good. And of course, if you'd like to reach out to me in that old-fashioned email way, the way that our Maz and Paz once did, you can do so at superconnectivityblog@gmail.com. That's superconnectivityblog, all one word, at gmail.com. And of course, follow me on the Twitters as I live tweet The Incredible Hulk, 7 o'clock on Saturdays on MeTV, at Charlie Esser. That's CharlieEsser. Look for the 2 E's in the middle for quality. Thank you for hulking out with us, ladies and gentlemen. Please hulk out with us again.
We hope you've enjoyed this show. This podcast is part of the 80s Reboot Overdrive channel on Southgate Media Group. You can follow us on Facebook on the 80s Reboot group page. We're also on Twitter and Tumblr at 80s Reboot. We invite you to check out all the wonderful podcasts and blogs available at southgatemediagroup.com. And thank you for reliving the 80s.